Her world was heat blinding, relentless heat shimmering off cracked earth. Abigail lay still, the breath shallow in her lungs, her swollen belly a leaden weight beneath the rags of her dress. Abandoned, left to die under the merciless eye of the sun. Who could inflict such cruelty? What kind of man leaves his pregnant wife in the heart of desolation? The answer was as bitter as alkali dust. But wait, a figure rippled in the heat haze, emerging from the glare. Not hope, not as she knew it. Something else. A Comanche hunter, obsidian eyes taking in her plight, reading the story of betrayal etched in the sand. He saw the crime, and the ancient code humming in his veins demanded balance, the retribution as fierce and unsparing as the land itself. A savage reckoning was coming. Life hadn't always been this sharp edge of survival. Abigail Hayes remembered arriving in this territory, clinging to Benjamin's arm, his words painting canvases of a future bright with promise. A sturdy cabin, fields bowing with grain, a dynasty carved from the dust by their shared will. Their homestead, tucked into a windswept fold of the prairie, was meant to be that dream made real. But Benjamin's promises, like summer creeks, ran dry under the constant sun of hardship. He possessed a surface charm, a tool he wielded skillfully in the sparse settlements nearby. He could talk down prices, secure credit, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. But within the rough walls of their cabin, alone with Abigail, the veneer cracked. A clumsy spill might earn a glare that lingered too long. A simple question met with curt dismissal. His frustrations with the failing land, the relentless work, began to curdle, festering into a resentment he aimed squarely at her, and later, at the undeniable presence of the child growing within her. Abigail learned the silent language of his moods, moving quietly, trying not to provoke the temper that simmered just beneath his easy grin. She told herself it was the pressure, the crushing weight of frontier dreams, turning to dust. The confirmation of her pregnancy should have been a joy, a reaffirmation of their purpose. For Abigail, it held that fragile hope. For Benjamin, it seemed only to solidify a decision already forming in the colder corners of his heart. He spoke less of our future, more of my burdens. His gaze on her changing form held not wonder, but a chilling assessment. His trips away grew longer, his explanations vaguer, chasing rumors of work, hunting game that never seemed to materialize. The cabin shrank around her, the isolation pressing in. She saw him watching the dwindling supplies, his hand clenching involuntarily when a gust of wind rattled the door. She felt the distance grow between them, vast and cold as a winter prairie. The normal life she tried to maintain was a phantom, already dissolving. She just hadn't let herself see it clearly. Not until the evening, he returned with a false brightness in his eyes, spinning a tale of opportunity that felt disturbingly hollow, a tale that required leaving her utterly alone. He entered, brushing dust off his trousers with forced energy. "Abigail," he announced, his voice attempting a cheerfulness that hadn't been heard in months. "There's word of good paying work down south, guarding a wagon train. Enough to set us right." Abigail paused, needle mid-stitch, a cautious hope rising. "Where, Benjamin?" "Towards Santa Fe Trail way," he replied, avoiding her direct gaze, fussing with the saddle strap. "It's fast travel, though." "Rough. Too rough for you, in your condition." He gestured vaguely at her belly. The hope died, replaced by a familiar dread. "Leave me here." The vast emptiness outside the cabin walls seemed to rush inwards. "Just for a spell, Abby," he insisted, turning towards her, placing hands on her shoulders in a gesture that felt practiced, insincere. "It's vital work. We need the coin. Look, I won't leave you here. There's an old, sheltered line cabin I know, west of here. Good water nearby. I'll take you there first, set you up proper with supplies. Then I ride on, join the train. I'll be back before you know it. Pockets heavy. Trust me. West, not east, towards the settlement, towards Mrs. Gable who had shown her kindness. Why not take me to town, Benjamin? I could stay there." His grip tightened, just slightly. No time. Wagons won't wait. And we can't be beholden to the gables again. He tried a different angle, forcing a smile. Think of it as holding down the fort. I need you strong on this, Abigail. For us. Her instinct screamed against it. The westward direction, the vagueness, the brittle cheer, it all felt wrong. But arguing would ignite his temper. And perhaps he was desperate. Perhaps this truly was their only way. Reluctantly, fearfully, she agreed. The next dawn saw them loading their single, overburdened horse. Benjamin was agitated, eager to be gone. He led her deeper into unfamiliar territory, arid canyons and rocky washes she'd never seen. The sun climbed, beating down mercilessly. The promised day's ride stretched into exhaustion. Finally, in a desolate arroyo, utterly barren, miles from anything resembling a trail or shelter, he halted. "This'll do," he muttered, unloading a cruelly small cache of supplies. A handful of jerky, a meager bag of cornmeal, a water skin less than half full. "Benjamin, where's the cabin?" "The spring you mentioned?" Abigail's voice trembled, raw panic beginning to surface. He swung onto the horse, keeping his face averted. "Plans change. This is better hidden. Safer. Listen, I got a scout ahead. See if I can catch sight of the wagon train. You wait right here. I'll be back by nightfall. Promise. Benjamin, please. Don't leave me." She reached for him, desperate. He kicked the horse, forcing her back. His glance, as he rode away, was cold, detached, perhaps even relieved. "Be strong, Abigail." His voice floated back, a final, cutting piece of mockery. He disappeared around a bend of scorched rock. The silence crashed down, absolute and terrifying. The sun climbed higher, searing the land. The tiny pile of supplies seemed to shrink under its glare. Nightfall arrived, painting the sky in indifferent colors, but Benjamin did not return. Darkness brought a profound chill and the unsettling sounds of the desert night, the distant howl, the nearby rustle. Huddled against a boulder, Abigail finally understood the full measure of his betrayal. Every word, every touch a lie. He hadn't just left her. He had deliberately led her to this waterless, trackless waste. He had abandoned her, pregnant and alone, to die. The vast wilderness seemed to lean in, suffocating her with its immensity, and the only company she had was the frantic, terrified beat of her own heart. Day bled into agonizing day. The sun was a physical blow, the heat a suffocating blanket. Abigail rationed the water with desperate care, each sip a torment reminding her how little remained. The jerky was leather, the cornmeal grit. Her world shrank to the immediate, brutal needs of survival, seeking shade under meager overhangs, scanning the merciless horizon for any sign of life, any hope. There was none. Only rock, thorn, and the vast, empty sky. Her body screamed protest. The child within felt heavy, draining her scant reserves. Fear was a constant companion, tightening its icy grip with every snap of a twig, every shadow that moved in the periphery. Sleep offered little respite, filled with fragmented nightmares of Benjamin's cold eyes, his final, dismissive glance. She remembered now the countless small cruelties, the subtle underminings, the growing indifference hidden behind his public charm. It hadn't been hardship that broke him. He was already broken, hollowed out by a selfishness so profound it could conceive of this slow murder under the guise of abandonment. Each memory fueled a cold, hard anger that began to supplant the fear. She licked dew from stones at dawn, chewed bitter leaves for moisture, her strength steadily ebbing. Walking became an ordeal, dizziness threatening to pull her down into the dust. The hope of rescue faded like a mirage. She was adrift in a sea of desolation. Unseen, Kono watched. Days earlier, his path had crossed the tracks, a shod horse, moving west, accompanied by the smaller, uncertain prints of a woman walking. Then, further on, only the horse tracks, heading away with purpose. A story told in the dust, one he knew too well. Betrayal. He followed, melting into the landscape, his movements economical, silent. A hunter reading the signs. He spotted her from a ridge, a small, slumped figure against the vastness. He observed her struggle over the next day, saw her movements weaken, saw her collapse near the arroyo. He noted her condition, the pitiful supplies, clearly meant to run out quickly. His stoic face tightened. The Namunu, his people, lived by a harsh code. But this, abandoning a pregnant woman to the elements, to the scavengers, this was beneath contempt. It violated something fundamental, a perversion of kinship, of responsibility. His initial caution warred with rising indignation. He circled, ensuring the man wasn't lurking, waiting. The tracks led straight west, unwavering. The coward was long gone. He watched her final collapse, her surrender to the inevitable. The time for watching was past. Driven by a code that recognized this act as a deep offense against the natural order, he descended, his moccasins making no sound on the rock, moving towards the still form under the blazing sky. The world tilted, blurred. Abigail felt the cool earth against her cheek, a small comfort in the furnace of the day. Thirst was a physical pain, a fire in her throat. This was the end. A quiet, miserable fading away. A final, sharp sorrow for the child she carried, the life she wouldn't know, pierced through the fog of exhaustion. Then a shadow, blocking the sun. She forced her eyes open. A figure stood over her, backlit by the blinding sky. Tall, sinewy, dark skin gleaming. Leather leggings, symbols painted on his chest. Long black hair held by a band. Comanche. Fear, primal and immediate, shot through her. Stories of raids, violence, terror whispered in the settlements flooded her mind. She tried to shrink back, a futile gesture. In his hand, incongruously, he held out a water skin. Kono held his position, his face unreadable, but not hostile. He sank to his haunches slowly, deliberately, his movements telegraphing peace. He extended the water skin again, gesturing. Her mouth, then his. Water. The fire in her throat raged hotter than her fear. Her hand, shaking uncontrollably, reached. His fingers brushed hers as he steadied the skin to her lips. Cool water. Life. It trickled down her throat, easing the agony. She drank too fast, choked. Kono made a low, soothing sound, gently tilting the skin back, indicating slower sips. His dark eyes missed nothing. The rags of her dress, the swell of her belly, the sunburnt skin, the profound exhaustion. He glanced around the pitiful campsite, noted the scarce supplies, the single set of horse tracks leading resolutely away. The story required no words. When she could drink no more for the moment, he sat back, watching her. He pointed west, the direction the tracks led, then made a riding motion. He looked at her, a silent question. Tears, hot and unexpected, tracked through the dust on her cheeks. Not sorrow now, but the overwhelming relief of a single human presence, however alien, however frightening. Husband, she rasped, the word catching in her throat. Benjamin gone. She touched her belly, then made a sharp, pushing away gesture. Left me. Kono's eyes narrowed, a flicker of cold understanding in their depths. Her broken words, her condition, the undeniable evidence, it confirmed his reading of the signs. His gaze swept the empty horizon. He knew to hand ways, marriage, family. To discard kin, especially a woman carrying new life. To leave her helpless, it struck him as profoundly dishonorable, a rot at the core. He produced a pouch, offered her dried meat, better than the scraps she'd had. Hesitantly, she accepted, chewing slowly, feeling strength seep back into her limbs. He shared nuts, berries. Simple sustenance, yet it felt like a feast. He noted the direction Benjamin had taken. Westward, towards trails known for their mix of travelers, traders, soldiers, and those who preyed on them. Men like shadows, moving between worlds. Kono knew this land, its secrets, its dangers. He knew where desperate men might run, or where violent men gathered. A grim certainty formed. Her husband wasn't just fleeing hardship. He was running toward something dark. He looked at Abigail, leaning now against the rock, a fragile spark reignited within her. He could leave her, point her towards the distant hope of a settlement. But the image of her plight, the sheer callousness of the abandonment, resonated with his warrior's sense of order. An imbalance had been created. Leaving her now felt like complicity. Leaving the man unpunished felt incomplete. A cold fire ignited within him. He would see her to safety, and then he would follow those westward tracks. The hunt had taken a new, sharper focus. Abigail needed time. Kono found a shallow overhang offering better shelter and allowed her to rest, sharing his water, his food. Communication was sparse, gestures conveying rest, water caution. Slowly, fear gave way to a fragile trust in this silent, capable stranger. His presence was no longer just terrifying. It felt like a bulwark against the vast, indifferent cruelty of the land. When she could manage it, they moved. Slowly, Kono choosing the path of least resistance, his eyes constantly scanning, reading the subtle language of the terrain. He pointed out edible plants, animal signs, his silence profound, broken only by necessary gestures. He never lost the trail of Benjamin's horse. Then, one afternoon, he stopped, kneeling, his focus intense. He pointed to the ground. 2 new sets of hoof prints joined Benjamin's. Shod horses, ridden hard. Kono studied the impressions, noting the familiar wear on one shoe, a slight drag he recognized. His face hardened. He held up 3 fingers, then drew one finger sharply across his own throat. Danger. He pointed to the tracks, then made a swooping, raiding gesture before indicating the southeast, towards known homesteads. He tapped his chest, Namunu, the people, then repeated the raiding sign. Enemies. Abigail watched, the meaning chillingly clear. Benjamin hadn't just fled. He had found companions. Raiders. Men who attacked settlers and Comanche. A wave of nausea washed over her. This wasn't just abandonment born of desperation. It was a deliberate choice, a step into violence. He had shed his past, shed her, to join predators. Perhaps the stolen supplies, the meager resources from their failed homestead, had been his price of entry into this brutal new life. Kono's quiet intensity sharpened. The situation had escalated. Benjamin Hayes was no longer just a dishonorable husband. He was now allied with Marcus Flint, a ruthless Tejano whose band brought terror wherever they rode. Flint was known for his brutality, his lack of mercy. Benjamin had thrown his lot in with poison. Kono looked at Abigail. He couldn't drag her into a confrontation, but neither could he leave the threat unchecked. He led her towards a cluster of low hills, finding a hidden canyon blessed with a small, reliable spring, a place known to his people, defensible, concealed. He helped her gather fuel, left her the bulk of his remaining provisions, filled her water skin to the brim. Stay hidden, he conveyed through gestures. Keep fire small. Wait. He pointed west, made the sign for tracking, touched his chest. He would go. He would deal with the source of the threat. This was now about more than one woman suffering. It was about confronting the spreading violence represented by Flint and his newest recruit. Abigail understood. Fear warred with a grim sense of inevitability. This silent warrior was now her unlikely champion, bound to confront her husband for reasons that transcended her personal tragedy. She watched him check his bow, the arrows in his quiver, his movements economical and deadly. A final, unreadable look passed between them before he turned and vanished into the landscape, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. He was going to find Benjamin. He was going to deliver Comanche justice. Kono flowed across the terrain, reading the story left by 3 riders moving with careless arrogance. They thought themselves hunters. They were merely prey leaving a clumsy trail. Ashes, hoofprints, discarded refuse. They broadcast their passage. Kono closed the gap over 2 days, his senses alert, his purpose cold and clear. He located them at Scorpion Creek, a fitting name for their temporary haven. 3 men by a fire, the scarred bulk of Marcus Flint, 2 other hard-bitten Tejanos, and among them, trying to project an ease he clearly didn't feel, Benjamin Hayes. Spoils lay scattered nearby, cloth, grain, saddles not their own. Evidence of recent plunder. From a shadowed overlook, Kono observed. Flint remained watchful, but his men were lax. Benjamin fidgeted, his eyes darting nervously towards the encroaching dusk. He was a poor fit for this company, a sheep trying desperately to mimic wolves. Direct confrontation was suicide. Kono's aim was precise. Benjamin, justice for Abigail demanded it. He waited, patient as the stone around him, as twilight deepened. The men ate, drank, Flint's boasts echoing in the stillness. Slipping away, Kono circled wide, using the terrain, the gathering dark. He found a narrow game trail leading into dense mesquite. Perfect. He gathered pebbles. Near the horses, downwind, he waited for Flint's loud voice to provide distraction. A sharp toss of pebbles into dry brush on the far side of camp. Horses startled, whinnying. What the hell? One of Flint's men growled. Probably jackrabbits, Flint grunted, but his eyes narrowed. Go check the picket lines. As the man moved towards the horses, Kono struck. He erupted from the shadows beside Benjamin. A hand clamped over Benjamin's mouth, stifling his cry, an arm like braided leather locking around his chest. Kono dragged him backwards, away from the firelight, into the concealing darkness of the mesquite. Benjamin thrashed, muffled panic in his throat. Kono hauled him deeper, then slammed him against a tree trunk, spinning him around. The hand left Benjamin's mouth, replaced by the cold pressure of a knife blade against his throat. Benjamin gasped, eyes bulging with terror as he recognized the Comanche warrior. What would he want? Kono's voice was a low rasp, heavy with contempt, a mixture of broken English and Comanche sharp as flint. Woman. Mia. Yours. Child inside. You leave. Sunday thirst. Die. He gestured vaguely towards the east. Coward. Abigail. Recognition warred with terror on Benjamin's face. You found her. Is she? She lives. You gave her nothing. Kono pressed the knife slightly, silencing Benjamin's potential excuses. Ride with Flint now. Steal. Kill. Dishonor. Shame your blood. Shame the earth you walk on. I had to. Benjamin babbled, sweat streaming down his face. The farm failed. The baby. I had to survive. Kono radiated disgust. Survival did not excuse this depth of betrayal. Your choice was weak. Craven. He took in Benjamin's appearance, the stolen goods implicitly his now, the association with filth like Flint. Justice must fit the crime. Killing him was too easy. Leaving him to Flint's mercy was uncertain. The abandonment demanded a parallel consequence. You left her to the sun, the thirst, the stones, Kono stated, his voice flat, cold. You will know the same. He yanked Benjamin away from the tree. Swiftly, efficiently, Kono stripped him. Gun belt, knife, boots, waterskin, all taken. He tore Benjamin's shirt, leaving him nearly naked, vulnerable. Walk, Kono commanded, gesturing eastward, back the way they had come. Back towards the desolation Benjamin had chosen for Abigail. Barefoot. Alone. No. You can't. It's miles. Flint will kill me. Benjamin pleaded, his voice cracking. Flint will think you ran. Stole from him maybe, Kono said, a chilling lack of inflection in his tone. Flint does not forgive thieves. Or cowards. He gave Benjamin a hard shove, sending him stumbling onto the rocky trail. Walk, or the buzzards eat you here. Primal terror finally overcame Benjamin's paralysis. He scrambled up and began to stagger eastward, a pathetic figure against the vast, encroaching night, facing the mirror image of the fate he had intended for his wife. Kono watched him go, a fleeting shadow swallowed by the wilderness. He heard faint shouts from Flint's camp, the discovery. Let the wolves devour each other. His duty here, the specific act of balancing the scales for Abigail, was complete. He turned, melting back into the darkness, heading towards the hidden canyon, where a different kind of survival story waited. Kono materialized from the pre-dawn gloom at the canyon spring. Abigail, startled from a light sleep near her small fire, saw him approach, saw the grim finality in his bearing. She didn't need to ask. He simply nodded once, a subtle gesture indicating the immediate threat from Benjamin was neutralized. He replenished her water skin, checked the small store of provisions he'd left her. Using signs and gestures, he reinforced his earlier directions, southeast, towards the Settlers' River crossing. 2 sons' travel. He sketched the route again in the dust, canyon, hills, river, Tejanos, wagons, safety. His part in her story was drawing to a close. His own path diverged here. A silent understanding passed between them, survivor and rescuer, bound briefly by circumstance and a harsh frontier code. He gave her a last, long look, then turned and vanished into the rugged landscape as silently as he had first appeared. Fueled by a desperate will and the directions etched in her memory, Abigail began her trek. Each step was an effort, her body weary, but her spirit fiercely resolute. Hope, fragile but persistent, pulled her onward. 2 agonizing days later, she stumbled upon the river crossing. Just as Kono predicted, a small train of settlers, their faces weathered but kind, were making camp. They saw her plight, the exhaustion, the pregnancy, the tattered clothes, and offered help without hesitation. Water, food, a place by their fire, the simple compassion of strangers feeling like a profound blessing. She told them a version of her story, emphasizing the abandonment, omitting the Comanche's role, knowing the complexities it might introduce. They accepted her, offering passage and protection towards Fort Griffin. Within the fort's rough-hewn safety, weeks later, Abigail brought her daughter into the world. She named her Hope. Life remained a struggle, a daily negotiation with the frontier's demands. But she was alive, her daughter was alive, and she was free from Benjamin's shadow. The scar of his betrayal, the memory of the sun-scorched earth, would never fade. Yet beside it existed another memory, the stoic Comanche emerging from the heat, offering water, enacting a brutal justice, then vanishing back into the wild heart of the land. Benjamin Hayes was never heard from again. Did the desert claim him, mirroring the fate he planned for Abigail? Did thirst, or predators, or the unforgiving sun exact their toll? Or did Marcus Flint, suspicious and ruthless, catch up to his unreliable recruit? His end remained unwritten, swallowed by the vast, uncaring silence of the plains. Kono rejoined his people, the incident fading into the tapestry of seasons and hunts. His actions were not sentimentality. They were Tuiapu, the restoration of balance, the upholding of an honor code that the Tejano coward had violated. The scales had been righted, and so the story settled into the dust, perhaps told sometimes around low fires, a tale from the vast, untamed West, a story of cruelty met with savage consequence, of survival against impossible odds, and of the unexpected, fierce honor found in the heart of the wilderness. Abigail and Hope endured, carving their own life under the endless sky, forever marked by the shadow and, strangely, the protection of the Comanche who delivered a harsh, unforgettable justice.